Annyeong, it's Mikey here, and guys, today I have a really fun video because I haven't done a DIY kit in a while. Now, this is from Windstudio, and they sent me out the Hola 40. Now, this is actually the Numpad version, so very different layout than all the other boards I've tried so far. Completely new, and it's a DIY kit, so we're gonna have to use Hola 40 as the base. And thank you to Keytalk for sending me out these keycaps. So I have this Hola 40 with the Keytalk keycaps, and we're gonna go right into doing the build and of course unboxing and sound test with a new switch that I've got. So let's go right into that, and please make sure to like and subscribe.
Now, starting off with the unboxing of the Hola 40 with Numpad. Thank you again, Windstudio, for sending me this out because this is incredibly interesting, right? This is a layout that I've never seen before. It's the first time I'm seeing it, and first time I'm actually doing a build like this with this kind of layout at the 40% Numpad, so I'm very excited to try it out. And of course, this unboxing experience is pretty interesting. So they're calling this one, I think, the Hola 40 but 50% version, and their box and packaging is actually really well done. It's actually giving a premium feel to it, and to be fair, the price on these things are not cheap for a DIY kit, but I have to admit that this is a really nice unboxing experience. It's something interesting and something very different compared to what I've experienced in other boards and other companies out there. Now, you do get all these different pieces, so you get some tools to actually open it. They even give you an extra USB-C port just in case of yours breaks and you have to replace it. So you get a PC plate, you get a bunch of foam, of course, to add into your board, and you have the PCB. Now, this is not a wireless board, which I was kind of disappointed in. Honestly, I thought that it would be in a wireless mode available, but no, this is not a wireless, it's just a wired board. This board, though, in terms of the cut and the material, feels really well done. It is super smooth. The CNC is really well done in terms of this whole case, and it feels quite light too, actually. So I think in terms of portability, even though it's wired, it would work really well. But of course, we now have to weigh the board real quick. So let's quickly weigh how much it weighs. So this thing weighs 636 grams in total. And now I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to use to build it. So this is a DIY kit, doesn't come with switches or keycaps. Thank you again, Keytalk, for sending me this keycap set out. I was actually originally going to use this keycap set for a different build, but it worked out. I would love to show off what Keytalk is doing, because their keycaps is something that I really do enjoy. I think they make really nice designs, though I really do miss the smelt in 90s kind of design. I think a more cleaner design from Keytalk would be awesome, especially on the smile profile. I'd love that profile as well. It's actually really nice to type on too, and they do really great job. This is the UEG Wandering Earth 2 series, so it is really nice, and of course we'll have to see it later. Now I'm going to use the Keybay Guns N' Roses switches, so it's a newer switch that they've recently released, and I'm going to use that for this build. So let's now take a look in terms of actually building this board, getting all the parts out, because we're gonna have to do it. And it's been a while since I've actually done a DIY kit, so I want to show you guys the full process of what I'm doing to build this board out. Now, let's grab out the foam to see what foams we're working with. So we have a total of 4 here, so we're gonna have one for the plate, underneath the plate, and then we have one for the bottom of the case as well. So as you can see there, I'm putting there, that's the part that's gonna be right on the back of the PCB itself, and it'll help with dampening right there. We'll also have the foam that's going to go in between the PCB as well, so between the PCB and the plate, and we'll have to take a look at that as well. So this is the actual PCB, says Hola right on it. The back is kind of sharp though, so even though it's a PCB that I would say has been quite well done, it's kind of sharp in the terms of the cutting of it. The PCB itself is a 1.6 millimeter PCB, which is awesome, something I would love to see. It's not flex cut, which is also cool. And as you can see here, there's another foam. So you have 2 foams that are going to go on the back, and which is going to be on the bottom case. And then we have this sheet here that's going to go between the switches and the PCB. And then you'll also have one more foam. So I was just trying to line this up carefully because it's kind of confusing, especially because you have that number pad section and then you have the rest of the keyboard. So I'm trying to line it up with the spacebar. As you can see here, I'm having a hard time really fully lining it up, but this is just to show you guys, if you do get this board and you're building it and you want to know how to do it, this will be a good reference point for you guys to look at to actually do the build. Now this is the plate, and the plate isn't 1.6, so the plate's actually about a 1.5 millimeters, though My measurements in terms of this tool is not super accurate, but it looks like it's getting 1.3. From looking at their website, it's supposed to be about a 1.5. Now, this is going to be how it's going to look with the plate itself. And I think that this board is going to be really fun to work with, of course, but now we're going to have to go into the next steps of building a DIY kit. So this thing also doesn't come with its own stabilizers. This is the stabilizers that I was going to try to use for this build, which is one of my favorite ones. It's the Designer Studio plate mount stabilizers. And because I just think plate mount is a little bit easier to work with in general. One thing is, before we do anything, I want to show you guys how I lube the stabilizers. So I use Krytox 205, not the 205G0, which is actually a lot thinner, but Krytox 205 because it is a thicker lube. Now, one thing you can always do is add a little bit of 105 in there as well to make it a little bit looser. But let me show you what I do. So first of all, you're going to have to get the wire out of the stabilizer, and then we're going to have to lube it up. So I have the top lid where I'm using as like a point where I can kind of rub off some of the lube, and we're going to actually lube the wires first. Now, what do you do for lubing the wires? So this is what I do. I cover up the whole section that's going to be touching the stabilizer. So we get the point, like the curve point, we get the edges, we're getting all of it pretty much very lubed up. One thing to note for stabilizers is you actually can lube it quite a lot. It's not like switches where like you have to be careful and you don't want to over lube it. Stabilizers, you can actually lube it pretty decently. It's not going to be too bad to do with the stabilizer. So we're getting the wire done like that, and as you can see there, like I'm getting all of it and trying to cover up as much as possible because I really want the stabilizers not to make any like sounds or like tinging noises. So I'm really trying to get it all covered up with that lube and make it really clean with everything. So this is what you can do for your stabilizers. Sorry that it's hard for my camera to focus really on a small object like this, but hopefully you guys can get the idea of what you should do to lube the wire. The next thing will be to lube these stabs as well. So this is going to be the stabilizers, like the stem portion. So we're going to put lube all over the sides of it because that's where it's going to be rubbing against the housing of the stabilizer. And we're going to lube that on the side. So hopefully I can give you guys a close-up shot of like what it looks like in terms of the lubing. So that's how much lube I'm adding onto there, and should be kind of what it looks like under lighting. And that's how I do the actual stem for the stabilizers. Now the next part is going to be lubing the housing for the stabilizers. So as you can see right there, I just lube the sides of the walls, and that's pretty much all you got to do for the housing. It's really not too difficult here too. Just don't put too crazy of an amount, but you know, kind of what you did with the stem of the stabilizers, that's all you have to do. And now all we have to do is put it back together. So keep in mind for stabilizers, usually you're going to have one side with only one of the bottom, like the bottom, I'll say a line, and then you have the side with two. The two is going to be where it's going to be facing the actual hole for the stabilizer wire to go in, and then the half side is going to be on the other side. So that's the best way you can kind of think about it when you are putting in the stem for your stabilizers. Now, let's go into actually building the rest of it. And there's something else I need to note here, because I grabbed these stabilizers that I thought would work, but we're going to have to see, and let me show you guys something that I noticed afterwards. So I noticed that for this case, you actually have to take out all of the screws inside of the bottom casing, and you see there's total 8. So it'll have like those nubs there. You can see those are actually all screws. So you actually have to unscrew this to get this completely out. And it is a gasket mounted keyboard, so you'll have to see once I remove it what it looks like after everything has been taken out. Now removing all the screws out and moving the top case, you can see here how it's going to go in. So as you can see, once you put in the board, it will have the nubs there where you can actually input it, and I'll actually add them right now for you so that you can see how it is gasket mounted and what it does. So you put the nubs inside the top corners where it has the on the PCB itself, you have like those little edges where like you can put in the nub. So you're going to put it in there because that's what's going to be going on the bottom case to actually fit in, and then you get to have the full-on gasket mount experience, and it should really help with the dampening of the board as well in terms of like vibrations from the PCB into the case. So this is what you're going to be adding into the case itself, the PCB, to be able to help with that inside the board. Now, this is the thing that I was mentioning before. So the stabilizers I was going to use originally were the Designer Studio plate mount. This board does not work with plate mount stabilizers. I realized that afterwards. kind of dumb of me. I should have realized it when I was looking at the plate itself, but I was more focused on other stuff. And I realized, oh, you need screw-in stabilizers for this. So I luckily had some just lying around. I'm not sure exactly which brand it was. I think it came with my Monsgeek board, and I'm just using those for this build because, yeah, this thing does require screw-in stabilizers, and I realized I actually didn't have some on hand except for these ones. So we're going to put those in, and then I'll show you guys how to do so. So as soon as you put them in, I have also lubed them just the same way as I did the Designer Studio ones, just so show you guys how to do so there. And now I just have to attach it. So the big holes is where the actual like clipping portion is, so where the clip is in terms of the stabilizers. As you can see, the bigger hole is where the clip goes in, and then the smaller one is where the screw hole is going to go in. So that's the best way to know where to actually put your stabilizers in. If you aren't sure like the direction of it, is in PCBs, the bigger hole should be where the stabilizer clip goes in, and then the screw hole actually should be in the smaller hole. And that's how you're going to be able to put in your stabilizer in terms of screw-in ones. For anybody that maybe it's your first time building and you're not sure, this is going to be the best way to think about it. Just a bigger hole will be the clip, smaller hole is the screw, as you can see here. And I'll show you guys a little bit more up close once I get the screws in. So you can tell right there. That's the way it should be looking in terms of the stabilizers. Now it's our time to actually put in the board. So we're going to go first with no foam. I think that's the best thing I can do, is really give you guys a sound test with no foam. So we're going to put it all together now without the foam in the bottom. I'm still going to put the foam between the plate and the PCB itself though. And then we're going to now put it together. So one thing I noticed is there is another cable there. So it's actually for that lighting on the top left of the keyboard. And it's actually kind of hard to put in because the cable is really small. But you just have to input it. I would say put the case all together first and then put in the cable itself, because as you can see here, it's really difficult and it will fall out very easily. So it's best to actually like push it to the top and then get the cable in the back of the PCB all to come down, and then you can put it in and line it up carefully. So this is something that I'm going to suggest for anyone that's working on a similar board, or if you do get this board, what to do with it and how you can put in the cable. But of course, I want to show you guys adding in the switches now. So as I had mentioned, we're going to be using the Keybay Guns N' Roses switch. So let's get in all these switches to the board. Now going right into it, we put in all the switches in, as you can see in this board. It looks really nice actually. But of course, we have to add the keycaps in, a little bit of editing there, so you guys can catch up really quick. This is the Wandering Earth 2 set from Keytalk, which I really appreciate that they sent it out to me to try it out. I think it did come out really well with this board and the color profile, but let's hear the sound tests.
we've done the sound tests with like everything, and we built this whole board out. I think the box and unboxing experience with this Ola 40 was actually really nice. This thing is really long, actually. I didn't expect it to be this long, but to be fair, what was I expecting when it's a Numpad with a 40% layout? This thing is like a TKL size board. Now, I'm really curious what your guys' thoughts are on this board and the design of it. Like after the keycaps are in and everything, please let me know down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are. I really do appreciate this build. I think even without the foam, this board does sound really nice. With the foam, you really do get that dampening, and you can really hear that big difference between the two. I really do appreciate this DIY kit, though. I'm a person who does like to have tri-mode. I do like to have a battery inside. It would have been nice to actually have that battery to be able to use it wirelessly. I really like these key-based switches as well, the Guns N' Roses switches. Well done. Luckily, like this board doesn't have any backlighting, so I was kind of like wondering what it would look like with those switches, because like it's a black bottom and the red top. I think it would have really affected the lighting a lot and wouldn't have been great. So works out with this board completely. The keycaps, I really do love keycaps. I think the quality material that they use on their keycaps is really well done. I appreciate like the designs that they do. My personal favorite is actually the one back here, which is the Smile to 90s. I think that one is super nice, and I really wish they would kind of bring back a classic like that. It would be cool if they made a new design like that, and I'd love to see it. The Ola 40 has a really nice sound profile in terms of the board itself, so you can do like more of a clucky build without the foam, or you can even go with a little bit more of a like stocky build with the foam inside. You really get that kind of different options. This 40%, I really do like the Tide 49 layout compared to this one. I think the Tide 49 allowing you to have like the quotations and like semicolon, the space there is really nice to have, and a backspace. Plus with the ESC, no ESC is not fun. I really do wish that the ESC was still here. And you know what? You don't even need caps lock. I don't use caps lock. Change it with a tab. Would have been nice. I really think that like the quality though is super nice, and of course we're gonna have to go a little bit more in depth into looking at the board close up, seeing what like my thoughts are on this, and of course review this board as a whole. So let's go right into that.
So first things off, this profile of the board with everything like the keycaps and everything in, I think really did come out well. I do really like their design. It does have that really small weight, so that circular part in the board is actually a weight. This only has a LEDs on the top left, so the lighting's not available in this board at all, which I don't mind personally because I don't use lighting, but it's in the top left. Now, as you can see here, this is a TKL that I have, comparing it with the 40% that I also have from Eppomaker, the Tide 49, and then the Ola 40. So you can see how big the Ola 40 is. It's actually sitting at, I would say, about a 75%, a little bit bigger than a 75% board, but this thing is quite long. It is a definitely different layout, even if you compare it with the Tide 49, which is technically a little bit bigger than a 40%. It's like more of a 50% because it has those buttons there, right, with the question mark and the brackets and the quotations, which I actually really appreciate. I think I would love to have seen the Ola 40 have those keys as well. It would have been really nice to have those keys additionally. It just really helps in terms of typing, and I think in general, 50% is probably the most ideal for me compared to it, and then having this numpad is really useful as well. But as you guys can see there, the Ola 40 50% version with a numpad is quite long of a board, especially when you compared it with a TKL. Now, when I use this board, one thing I felt, and typing on it and using it, is that I tend to use that numpad with my pinky. Instead of moving a hand over, I'm actually trying to use my pinky. I don't have big hands, and if I did and I had longer fingers, like a longer pinky, it would have been really nice. It would have been much more comfortable to be able to use the pinky to just use a numpad. So if you do have longer fingers, this might be much easier for you. It is quite comfortable to use that way, but moving your hand over is where it kind of becomes a little bit less comfortable, because when you're using a smaller layout board, one of the key things is that you're using it because you're using shortcuts and you're having everything in a small area where you don't actually have to move your hand at all. This is requiring you to move the hand because of the layout, how it is done. Though, as I said, if you do have that longer pinky, it is possible, and I think you could get used to it just using that to use the numbers. Now, I personally do wish it did have like the question mark and the like quotations, as well as the like brackets in there because that's something that I personally do use often, and it would be useful to have without me actually having to press the function key to get there. But it's not a like the end of the world. I did get used to it, which this board wasn't too difficult to get used to after trying it for a bit. I'm quite sad that it didn't have wireless because I personally like to carry a wireless board for work instead of having to carry a cable as well. But it's not a huge deal. I do use my boards wired in terms of on my desk, and as you can see here, it fits in your hand. It's super easy to carry around. So that's one of the nicest things, is that it really is easy to carry. But one thing I did notice or thought about is that, this thing could actually technically be used as a weapon. It's like a full metal keyboard that you can carry with one hand like really easily. You could technically defend yourself with this thing against someone trying to steal your stuff. And I work like downtown area, so that is a thought I've had in my mind before. I think though, the keycaps that we're using here, the Keytalk ones, it really would benefit from using it on like a board with the back RGB in there. But let me just give you guys a bit of a measurement in terms of the keycaps itself. So we're looking at like a 1.3 millimeter thickness. I really do like what Keytalk does with their keycaps. Like the quality that they make it in is really nice. Though I think their designs are very, very out there, like very, very extravagant designs or like collaboration designs. I do miss their more basic designs. I think the Smelta 90s or a 90s themed keycap set from them would be really, really nice to see. But as you can see there, like that is actually transparent. So the lighting's supposed to push through there. And that's why I'm saying that the keycap set would most likely benefit from a board with really good backlighting compared to one without backlighting. Now this is a space bar. So I'm going to give you guys a measurement of the space bar as well in terms of thickness. So the back is like 1.7. The top side is going to be 1.2, 1.3-ish. And then the sides, we're looking about 1.3, 1.4. So this keycap set is really well done in terms of the thickness as well, the quality, and you will get a pretty decent sound as well from this keycap set. Now, of course, we're going to look at these switches. So this is from Keybay. It's the new Guns N' Roses switch. I really like Keybay switches. My favorite switch right now in total is the blue cheese V2. This one also is quite well done. The switch itself doesn't have much stem wobble, which I was quite impressed by. You do get a little bit, but it's very, very little. Like they did a really great job, especially for that type of stem style. And I'm really liking this. The sound profile is very different. It's not like the blue cheese where it's very deep sounding. This one, I'd say, has a little bit of a higher pitched thok to it. It's still a thok though. So it's a thoky switch that is slightly higher pitched. It feels quite light to type on as well. And I think lubing it is much better. Like the stock is not bad. The stock doesn't really have any lubing done on it, and it's still really smooth, but it still has a little bit of that like scratchiness from the springs. And I think once you hand lube it, it just really helps it a lot and improves it quite a bit. Now, going into the actual website to kind of take a look at what we're looking at. So this is the Hola. This is Windstudio. We have an Hola Mini, and we have the Hola 40. So the Hola 40 is like the Numpad version, and the Hola Mini is just the 40%. You get 3 different colors. I think the Numpad one is a very interesting board. Of course, everyone will have their own preferences in there. They really do lay it out there, like what they built out there. So the top case, like the RGB placement, they have the 1.5 millimeter PC plate, 3.5 millimeter foam, and it really measures it out. A lot of other companies, when they put things on the website, usually don't give you the measurements of everything, and will just tell you what it is. So it's really nice to see that they have giving you that information. There's a wired version, which is the hot swap version, and then you have a wired soldered version. So you could solder in your switches as well, and it is up to you. You can get the A stock or B stock, but it is quite expensive, where the 50 is a $200 board or a DIY kit, not even a pre-built. This is where you can get the website for the software as well. So if in the website, you can go in the firmware section and you can actually click on VIL. So this is something new for me. I haven't ever used VIL before. If anyone has, please let me know what your experiences were with it. It seems like it's really customizable to the point where like it's incredibly customizable. I'm curious though why it was VIL and not through VIA. This is just something that's completely new to me. It seems though that this thing does work really well in terms of doing all the layers and changing everything you need. It looks like it's very, very customizable and more than say VIA would be. But I could be wrong in terms of that. I think they're both very similar. And I think VIA is a lot cleaner and it feels a little bit more modern and new, while VIL seems quite just your like ruggedness of it, like the rugged software, but has everything you need and pretty much allows like anyone that wants to go into further and to do more things to the board, a lot of different options to do it. Like these are things that I've seen for the first time, right? Like QMK settings, like you have matrix tester, which allows you to see, though it really is slow and it reacts very slow, right? You have key overdrive and you have combos and tap dance, and there's a lot of things in the software that I was quite surprised to see. But the next thing we're gonna have to do, of course, is to test this board in terms of keyboard inspector, see the polling rate. So we should be getting 1,000 hertz. And I did try using this in gaming. It does work well. There's like no latency issues with it. The only thing is though, is because you don't have the numbers. So I'm using it in like playing Apex, and because there's no numbers on the top, I have to press FN and Q and W and E, which was a little bit more of a complicated thing to do, and it is much slower than just using a board with numbers. So for gaming wise, if you do play FPS games, this really won't work very well unless you change the keys. Now, they do have a lot of different boards that have really different types of layouts in there. They have this new one that they're doing with this Alice board with the numpad, which you can choose left or right. I think it's very cool. You can go check out their website. I'll have the links in the description for you guys. Of course, just check it out. All the different things they're doing. I think Windstudio, it was really interesting to see. Like when I first got to see their site and their different boards, very interesting with the different layouts that is really not common in the market.
Now, I hope this video helped you guys in terms of figuring out, is this a type of board you would like to use? I would love to hear, your guys' comments in terms of this Hola 40. It is a definitely more premium board. It is not priced. It's not cheap, sorry. It is a bit of a pricey side, right? Like the DIY kit itself is going to set you back almost like $200. And then on top of that, switches and keycaps, as well as stabilizers. So putting it all together, you're probably spending about $250, $300 pretty easily. The quality of this board, though, is actually quite insane. I think I really, really appreciate like the materials that they use, how good the cut of the metal is. It's not even too heavy either. I'm actually like carrying this for my daily work use. I do wish it had the wireless, but it's okay. Using a wired, I do use most of my boards wired anyways, except for when I'm actually at the office. I'll have the links in the description for you guys. Go check out like what they're doing. They do really, really interesting layouts. Like that's one thing I really appreciate with Windstudio and like taking a look at their other boards is they do really interesting layouts, and it's really cool to see. So go check it out. I'll have the links for you guys, and of course, go check out the other videos I got, and I'll have to catch you guys next time.